Yeah, I want to give some more updates on the metals markets too. Again, now I know platinum and palladium got hit today again, and I put a thing out there they shouldn't stay too low, but they shouldn't stay too low. See, in the case of platinum and palladium, those mines are pretty much platinum and palladium. They're mined at the same time. Now, with the exception of palladium, nickel is actually mainly produced from Norris mine, but they have a lot of problems over there. Actually, there's so much pollution. They got to pay the miners twice as much money to work there. And like I said, the only reason palladium was this low is because they were mining in northern Siberia since the 1930s, and they stockpiled this stuff for decades and decades and decades until they found a use for palladium, which was in catalytic converters of cars, was the main one, and also electronics. So those things are supposedly dwindling down a little bit. So it really can't maintain these prices on platinum and palladium. Silver's all over the world. I know that, if your mine in the United States gets productions diminished or someplace else, they could maybe take up for it. But the price of silver really is too low. But, it's like the futures market is not really dictating what the profitability of the companies have to have, at a certain price, to actually stay in business over the long term. Because with silver, like all the easy stuff and all the metals, basically, all the easy stuff has been gotten, just to put it in simple terms. And when you go looking for more, it's more expensive. Just like oil, there's plenty of oil on this earth, there's probably plenty of silver, but it just gets more and more expensive to mine. That's exactly what happens. Now, actually, with oil got clobbered today. That's the only thing that actually pissed. I know I shouldn't have said nothing, but I am in leverage oil, and I have the expectation I'm going to hold it till Iran blows up, and it will happen at one point in time. The only thing where I'm really nervous is if something goes wrong with the fund itself, or you know what I mean, because it's in when you're using funds like this, they're involving derivatives when you're using a little bit of leverage, but I don't have heavy leverage. And if you look long term in oil, actually this has been the scuttlebutt on Veterans Today, their website, that Iran will be attacked by the end of 2013. You could probably look back and say other people predicted 2012, 2011, 2010, 2009, but it is coming to a situation where the situation's coming to a head. And now that we have Kerry as our Secretary of State, he's another asswipe like Hillary Clinton. But well, actually, I'm going to tell you, Iran, I don't even want to get into it, but sincerely, there's bad stuff goes on with Iran, too. They ain't a bunch of saints. That regime is not cool. I don't think the Westerners actually realize they're screwed up, man. But, I know our Western leaders screwed up, too. Both sides. All leaders seem to be pretty screwed up. That's why we got the Bill of Rights and power to the people, and you stick with that. But anyway, as far as goes with the metals, Silver Mania pointed something out, and this is something. Fiat paper, actually, where did it come from in the first place? Where did the concept come from? China. China was like some Chinese emperor or something, just going from memory. Basically came up with the idea, hey, I just make paper notes, and this is money, no longer silver and gold. And actually, the Europeans came over and said, wow, what a neat concept. How do you get them to accept it? Oh, gunpoint, basically, or sword point, one or the other, So, Silver Mania pointed out, hey, the United States can actually force fiat paper by gunpoint. Exactly, that's exactly what they do, because actually, like any country, I guess that's the real reason. I knew this, a lot of people look at me like, hey, it's a conspiracy theory. Got years and years and years ago that Saddam Hussein was actually attacked because he switched to trading oil in euros versus the U.S. dollar. Because actually, if countries start dumping the dollar, we're screwed. And actually, that's what countries are doing. And a lot of other parts of the world are the ones that are actually producing quite a bit. So they don't really need to bother with the United States too much. They can just trade between each other because they seem to be working their ass off really good in China and stuff like that, and India and Russia, right? So Russia actually ain't usually using the dollar, right? I mean, they're not big global power militarily they are, but not necessarily in economic strength, except for maybe oil and natural gas, that type of stuff, but generally not producing a lot of goods that the world uses. But more and more countries are not using the dollar. Actually, I think there's agreements between Japan and China and all this other stuff. I know Brazil and China. I forget. Anyway, there's been a lot of agreements out there between skipping using the dollar as the world reserve currency. So it actually is going to come home to roost at one time, and we're going to have massive inflation. There's nothing they can do about it. So I strongly, actually, in the position of the metals, I feel fine. The only one I'm a little antsy on is the oil. But you know what? Actually, people who got super scared during a time when all the markets crashed in 2001, they pulled out their money, and they thought it was going to go lower and lower and lower. You just look back years and years and years and years, all these different times these people got super scared. There's always been a big recovery, even if it's a halfway recovery. In the case of oil, it's probably going to go, actually, if you look at the long-term charts, it probably looks like there's a gigantic bull flag out there pretty much, and that could be up to $150 to $200 a barrel. Basically, that's if you complete the next bull flag. One little attack on Iran, it's going to go to 120 bucks a barrel, like that, overnight. So I'd have my money back plus. That's why I'm holding my position. So for any of you people keep wondering about it, I don't put all my money in oil, okay? So, but actually I have like a lot of my money in commodities in general, and all commodities are getting hammered. But I'm not worried about the metals, not at all, because I know they're going to go up. I put more money into silver at 28 because I figured it might go to 26, but then it might spring up to 30, and then I'll dump it at 30, and then if it goes to 26, I'll buy back. But I don't know. I got money that I can wait, so I don't care. And the other thing is, same with platinum. I put more money in at 14 something. It's lower than it was, but I'm not worried about that because 14 something is extremely low. I know 2009 it went down to like 8 something or something crazy. We got below 1,000. But there's a lot of other conditions today where it can't go that low. And I was mentioning also with the miners, like if you look at, like I never got involved in the financials and stuff with the miners. I didn't really deal with that, accounting wise. But I saw a lot of pro formas on ventures that were going to be started up, that were proposed in miners, that were big ventures. And actually, when you look at the numbers, and actually, if you just look at any article about miners, a large part of the operating cost is diesel fuel. And looking at actual numbers that were projected for the miners, this mining operation that was actually in Nevada, Arizona area, it was like about 50% diesel fuel. So like in 2010 or 2009, diesel fuel actually was pretty low. Actually, during the commodity dip, when, say, platinum got below 1,000 and palladium got like below $200 and silver was down to like 10 bucks and stuff, actually diesel then was like under $2, way less than $2. I think gasoline was like $1. It was cheap. Like when oil dropped down like to $35 a barrel during that time too. It also, in other words, the production cost of the mines, the operating production cost of the mines dropped too. So, but I don't think oil is going to drop down that much. But even right now with the price of oil like it is, with all the extra refineries dropping off, basically the refineries, there's not as many as refineries. The price of diesel is still like $4 a gallon. It's still like double what it was years ago. So that's like half their ongoing operating costs. Like you figure they're not doing more capital expenditures. Like they have all these different things out there they buy. It's like all this different equipment and stuff. There's like environmental studies. There's road impact fees. There's all these different studies, how much it's going to affect the community. There's EPA pollution studies, all this kind of stuff. Wildlife studies, all kinds of garbage. So like they want to do more, they have to do all that stuff first, and it takes at least a couple of years before they even start digging anything out of the ground. So they're just going to have to run with what they got right now, and the operating cost for even what they got right now is a lot higher than it was a few years ago in, say, 2009, because the diesel fuel is a lot higher. So, and it's even if we see the crude oil go down, like I said, it's not affecting the end product diesel fuel so much because of the thing they're doing with all the refineries and stuff. I don't know what the hell they're doing, but they're closing down all these refineries and stuff. I looked into it a while ago. That's why gasoline is not actually dropping as much as crude oil is, you know, because it's stuff going on with the refineries and stuff. Something else I want to point out, and actually yesterday I talked about Vladimir Putin as the godfather of Russia. This guy, you know, actually that's not true. He's the most powerful guy in Russia, but you know, I should not associate him with the mafia. And I want to actually put something out here because, like Alex Jones always says, yeah, the criminal mafia cartel and stuff. Actually, the mafia is basically somebody against the elite. That is why the mafia formed up in the first place. Look back at any history. The mafia is actually against the elite. The mafia came about because of oppression. Oppression, oppression, oppression. Excessive taxation, excessive rules. Doing wrong to people. So then the mafia came about. Actually, you see that type of stuff happens in Japan. That's where even the martial arts came about, because people in Okinawa or whatever, they were not allowed to use have weapons. So they were farm tools, and they learned how to use farm tools to fight and defend themselves. Basically, that is actually the real mafia. The Russian leader, Putin, he's basically a czar, like they've always had before. And I don't know. I think he's not a good guy, to tell you the truth. Not at all. Not at all. But anyway, I'm just going to put a little story out here about Vladimir Putin. He, back here on February 5th, it looks like he gave a little putty cat, called Mir, M-I-R, which means in Russian, either peace. That's got several meanings. It either means like world, peace, community, or peace, you know. So he gave it to the governor over in, it was a prefecture, Akita prefecture, where the tsunami hit. And because the governor gave Putin a nice little puppy, you know, he gave him a little puppy. So in return, Putin gave him a cat. And the cat had to stay in quarantine for 5 months, and he finally got out of quarantine. That's stupid, you know. The Russian leader's giving the guy in Japan a cat, you know, the governor of Japan a cat, and then they got to go by this rule, like, let's keep it in quarantine. You couldn't keep it in quarantine where the governor resides? I mean, they're freaking bunch of bureaucrats, man. But anyway, now the cat's living in Sataki's home. So anyway, that's a nice cat story. So Putin must think, okay, a cat, so that's one good thing about him, I guess. You know, I could figure that anyway. But otherwise, he's a czar. And I can't call him mafia, because if he was a mafia, he'd be against a guy like Putin. See? Because only the mafia is, what the mafia is really about, it's anti-oppression. Anti-oppression. And you know, here's where people really get mad at me. Jews have been oppressed for a lot of years. I know sometimes they get real rich and people get really resentful of them. They don't like them because they got a lot of money, or some do. Some do. But that's why sometimes even Italians and Jews get along pretty good. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. But anyway, as far as what's going to happen in the commodities markets, you know, actually, you know, the 22 thing is really solid, but you could expect it could bounce at 22. Fundamentally, these prices don't make sense. I know people talk, and I'm not even talking about QE. I'm talking about actual mining and production. And if all these prices of commodities are dropping, the equities might be next. They might be next, even though the Fed is pumping up the situation. But the thing is, the Fed is not Almighty God. What happens a lot of times, even with any central bank, is where they screw up, is they keep adding money, and they use this word called, like Mark Faber will say, I'll use his name again, unintended consequences happen. Other bubbles inflate. Actually, you know, where another reason I'm thinking platinum and palladium, I've always been good on these metals. I think platinum is always a good buy when it's cheaper than gold. Right now it's not cheaper than gold, but it's always a good buy when it's cheaper than gold. I always thought palladium was a good buy. Even now, even though if you bought it a month ago and it dropped, you know, you're not playing day trading or flip trading real fast. You want to hold this a while. I think palladium is actually going to be as much as gold. But the fact also that Sprott is pushing palladium and gold, that's something else. And you know, I know he's like kind of crafty and sly. He's not stupid. Oh, why has he got like all that kind of money? I mean, is he stupid? But you know, I have to 100% agree with him. I mean, I'm not agreeing with him. I've been saying it for years. Platinum and palladium are very good to buy. I mean, if you bought platinum back years ago when it dropped below, like got down to $800 something, you're still way the hell up. Like actually, I bought Palladium when it was 175 and 200. I mean, I'm like, oh, it dropped a little bit. I'm still sitting really a lot higher, right? I mean, actually bought my silver cheaper, my gold cheaper, my platinum cheaper, everything. But the thing is, that's probably one reason I'm not worried about it too much, because I actually bought it on the dip. I bought a lot of my stuff on the dip of 2009, whatever the hell that was. That went around the bottom of almost everything. That's probably one reason I'm not too worried about a lot of stuff, because I know it ain't going to go that low. Because if it went that low, gas would have to be down about like $1.25 a gallon again. And I know they're not going to do that again, because actually Lindsey Williams is partly right about some of this shit. Those guys running the oil industry, they're going to jack the price of oil up as high as they possibly can, because they want to make a lot of money off the oil they got within our borders of the United States. That makes perfect sense. They own the product. They want to get as much money for it as possible. So I think the theory about the Middle East blowing up, yeah. And I think part of the reason it's not blowing up just yet is actually because of an advisor that's around Obama, President Obama, Valerie Jarrett. Actually, I think she grew up or something in Iran. And she's like one of the most powerful advisors around. Actually, she is. She pretty much controls, from what I've read, even from Democratic insiders, that she pretty much controls who gets to around Obama. So, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, actually, the best way to, if they could just, laser strike a couple of religious kooks on the top in Iran and say the war's over with, I think that would be the best way to do it, God did it. Hit them with a lightning bolt, and then, you can leave everybody else alone. I think that would be the perfect way to end the war with Iran, because I think a couple of those guys on the top are pretty bad, to tell you the truth, because, well, I'm not going to get off on that subject, because it's too controversial. But anyway, it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen anyway, because there's certain elements that have been pushing for a war in Iran a long time. So oil probably could be a good bet, and if that does happen, you're going to see your commodities turn around real fast. I've been saying this for a while. I don't know. I don't know exactly when. I mean, I actually think it's been close a couple times. But, old Ben is actually going to probably screw up too. And, I mean, we've seen the numbers going down, we've seen the numbers going down, but, the thing is, do not sell at this, because I don't think the situation's going to stay the same. The equity's got no reason to be making money the way they are right now, because it's just being pumped up by the Federal Reserve. That's what's going on. They're not actually, the actual GDP in the United States is not that great. And you look globally, if there's a slowdown in China, and there's definitely a major, major slowdown in Europe, and there's also a major slowdown in Japan, and they're doing this record QE, the United States and U.S. numbers are probably BS. And it's almost like back in the 1920s. There was a lot of signs there was like slowdowns happening in the late 20s. But, people were ignoring it. They were like, oh, the stocks are going up. Oh yeah, boy. And all of a sudden, bam. And it wasn't just the stock market crash in 1929 that knocked it down. It was the one, I think it was in 32, that really knocked it down. We probably won't go into that situation, because Ben is going to print money. And whoever succeeds him is going to print money. So, and the other thing is, sometimes when you're down on something, don't get all like disheartened and sell. Because even like when they had the stock market crash in 1929, I don't know how many people were selling, panic selling. They were better off because it had a bounce. It didn't quite go up to where it was, but it had a nice bounce, didn't it? A really good bounce. That's why I think the final bubble for the metals is not here yet. It's going to get scary when it actually gets high, and I'll be dumping it. I'll be dumping parts of it by then anyway. But long range, I'll keep some metals anyway, because I like them. I've always had some metals. Even when gold was back in the 90s and shit, it wasn't. I always had some metals. I always had some, man. It's like, it's too good to have. So, but I wouldn't have as many. I would have a few, a little bit. That's what I would do.